also said, he said, yo, my bad. When I get nervous, I tell the truth.
98, I took a page.
What the fuck is wrong with this nigga? That's your man. That's your man.
Hey, who man's is this? Oh, man's is this?
Yeah, man.
Beat the shit out of you. I want you to go ahead. Touch me. You play with the wrong man. Touch me. You make me go up like a lion. I will destroy you.
And you play with the wrong man.
Yo, go. I'm telling you, I don't want no problem. Get out.
No.
I will beat the shit out of you right now.
Do it.
You understand? You play with the wrong man. You understand?
Do it.
And you do know you on camera being videotaped live that you gonna beat his ass.
Don't make me smash you.
Do it.
So, gentlemen, whose man's is that?
I don't know.
What the fuck is wrong with this nigga?
Black History Month you find ridiculous.
Why? You're going to relegate my history to a month? Which month is White History Month?
I'm Jewish.
Okay, which month is Jewish History Month?
Do you know why Black History Month is in February? I always make the joke that it's the shortest month, but do you know why?
Please inform us so we can check the comments later.
Because Abraham Lincoln was born and Frederick Douglass was born.
Okay.
Like, out of all of the people,
It was decided when they were important.
But they weren't the only important people.
But this is the 1800s, bro.
I don't know. I mean,
You didn't have Black History Month in the 1800s? What are you talking about?
Black History Month.
She presents very well, but when your face is 12, I say, what the hell?
That just means she's going to look really, really good when she gets older on the image.
bro, that's
She
all you can
looks too
muster
young.
up is that she looks young.
Dude, that's good. That's a problem for me.
You want an old
I
face,
understood.
hagglerless bitch?
Nah, dude, I
bring in the
just-
old face.
This man's name is Boyd Burton. He has had a gender reassignment and competes in women's MMA as Fallon Fox. He easily smashed all of his opponents. His next victim was Ashley Evans Smith. In one of the episodes, Ashley escaped from the clinch and took the opponent down. And in the third round, Ashley finished Fox off, punishing the rat for his sneaky action.
Well, how was that a good idea?
Well, no,
That-
Bravo, because
that's
you
what I put
said,
that into
you
the
know, it
segment.
doesn't matter. It's just people fighting. You know what I'm saying?
Quality!
No. I'm saying late trend.
Uh-oh,
But-
this is how they going to get them in the
didn't say-
comments.
When you've already developed your bone structure and your wide shoulders and that's a whole different ball game. When you non-competitively trans and you're all thin and estrogen has slimmed you down, all that stuff.
So only the weakness is what you say.
Felicia Darling says when the child entered the Byram store last week during record-breaking cold temperatures wearing only a diaper, well, she had to do something.
Get out that man, please. What the hell?
A customer in a riding shopping cart purchases an outfit for the boy, while the mother flips through her phone.
you are just the worst type of person.
If you're a bad parent, unsubscribe later.
No. We want them to get information and knowledge from our wonderful show.
Do you think somebody will take their baby out in sub-zero temperature will watch an hour-long podcast?
That's where they priorities lie.
I'll take the watch time.
She was a TikToker. Yo, she was.
Yeah, she was in my shorts feed. That's where she was at.
Africans don't like Americans because Americans are always in a hurry.
When Africans come to this country and they go through their classes, have you ever heard that they're told not to hang out with black African Americans?
Yeah, them niggas don't fuck with us.
It's culturally.
You ever notice that Africans can tend to be standoffish around you? Is that because they're told that if they
don't
hang
like
out with
tatas.
black Americans, it's a problem?
They don't want to associate with the impure.
So Megan makes this record. She doesn't name Nicki at all. Nicki's response embodied Jada Kiss's last. Don't fuck with the grimies over here, yo. We will getting at you.
Yeah.
That
She was like-
is the difference between Tommy guns and snipers. Nicki
Waiting for
was
this.
aimed. Nicki was aimed and ready and was like, I have been on this rooftop for 3 weeks, bitch.
I got a message from somebody.
I went right to the end of the first paragraph.
Yo, it says that Faith has hard boobs for me.
That's very kind of her.
Let's just be real. I don't like hard boobs.
No, what is this?
This is what happens when you let AI write your porno posts. When you let AI write your porno posts, AI doesn't know that.
I can't subscribe to that.
There will also be a greater push to advance the language skills of robots using AI.
But I think in 2024, we're really going to see that evolving, and we're going to see.
So I think the disparity between what's being hidden and what we know, it has shortened. I think it's still there. Don't get me wrong. But I don't believe AI can reason to the point that you believe it can yet. Because if it could, we'd already see it.
God. All right, Mr. Bravo.
Okay.
I'm trying to get money out of you.
Yeah, of course.
You know I'm trying to get money out of you.
Yeah.
And I'm like not hiding that.
I'm not taking care of no other nigga. You know what I'm saying? Once I was faced with that, I realized I wasn't even in a position where I was prospering. Here I am telling this lady of the night, I gotta get you out of that club. She was like, I'll sway.
Right. So what, you gonna take me home on the bus, nigga?
You a freaking private in the army and I got an apartment in a Honda Accord.
I'm trying to get money out of you.
Yeah, of course.
You know I'm trying to get money out of you.
Yeah.
And I'm like not hiding that.
I'm not taking care of no other nigga. You know what I'm saying? Once I was...
This is legitly on the road in Florida. How? No idea.
Certain states like Maryland, we already know. Florida, if car made it to motor vehicles, they'll put it.
I've seen them. I've seen those vehicles.
You don't even have to have a hood on that bitch. Like you just get an engine out and there's no hood. Just you looking at the engine and somebody just put a supercharger on a fucking Honda Civic somewhere, and you can drive that shit around.
Trying to get money out of you.
Google doesn't care if you're using AI to create content. Google only cares if the content is high in quality or low in quality. They don't even care if you write your content.
AI is writing people's Facebook posts.
AI is separating vocals from beats now.
That's
AI
cool.
is writing proposals for companies.
AI
also
doesn't
cool.
show up for practice and doesn't get to play in the game.
That is true.
If I'm on social media, right, and I want to post about my day, I would just say what happened. Why would I need to plug my day into AI for AI to make it more interesting?
I don't know, because your days don't seem that interesting.
They don't have to be.
This thing live looks like it is. Hold up. Where's my headphones at? Let me deal with this with y'all real quick. Thank you for joining another Purge of the BS, the morning show. Sorry, I was trying to get this stream together and I cannot get these transitions to work the way I want them to work. So I'm gonna take some time with that after I get off of this stream. But for right now, I want to thank y'all for coming in. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe. I am going to piss off the masses today, and it is well deserved. So if you don't know, hold on, this is Purge of the BS, the podcast. It's an action word. Bring some things down here. IMZ, I see you in the chat, baby. Good to see you. All right. I hate to say this, but we got some stuff to cover. And if you ain't here, that's fine. It ain't even for all that right now. Because the education or Department of Education was shut down yesterday, or at least for a day. And it brought me to a very interesting point where I had to really think about the education system, because I'm dealing with some things with an education system right now, and it really, really made me feel a certain type of way. So I'm coming on here today. We're going to cover a few things. We're going to talk a little bit about some things that Umar said. And I know everybody's mad at Umar right now because of the whole thing with his daughter, but that's a different topic, and I think you're going to enjoy, what he has to say. And it does put some perspective on some things. So I got to start somewhere, as usual. And I got to figure out where that's going to be. All right, let's go. Oh, man. Guys, I got what looks like a... All right, let's start with this so I can get in trouble with this first. Pause. Also pause. Yeah, y'all heard that. Y'all heard what it was. I don't know if y'all remember, but about, I want to say a month or so ago, they did the NBA All-Star game. And they had this performance in there. And I'm going to get hit for the performance. But for those of y'all that didn't see it, this was En Vogue's performance. And a lot of folks either are too young for En Vogue or maybe they don't remember all the members in En Vogue. But this is who they brought out for the All-Star game. So let me bring this over here to you. Hold on. Go this route over here. Y'all may or may not have remembered that performance, but what I did remember, first, let me say, En Vogue did really good in that performance because they're like 60 folks that were there. It's funny, this chick that came up at the end, I thought that was Left Eye for a second. I said, what the hell? Left Eye? But it was just some lady that kind of looked like Left Eye. But anyway, there was one particular member of En Vogue who was missing, and for whatever reason, nobody initially asked about it. But y'all might remember Dawn. Dawn from En Vogue was my favorite En Vogue member. And she apparently pops up on the internet, I want to say yesterday. And she says she's been living in her car. Dawn from En Vogue. So I'm gonna let y'all see it. We can ingest this together. We can ingest it together. Let's see what we got.
Guys, for the past almost 3 years, I have been living in my car. I said it. Oh my God, it's out. I've been living in my car. Oh my gosh. If you remember, if you guys were with me, in 2020, I did like 105,000 interviews. And in the interim, I was living with my parents in Vegas. And that was wonderful until it wasn't. I love my mom, but she became very angry. And a lot of her anger, she was taking out on me, and I was her target all the time. And I was like, I can't deal with this. Like, I respect her too much. Let me get out of here. And I was sleeping in my car for maybe about a month in Vegas. And then the guy that was co-managing me at the time was living in LA, and he said, you need to come back to LA. Okay.
ML
and
in the
he
chat,
said that I
see,
could
bro.
stay with him. And so I was like, okay. He's like, I don't have a lot of room, but I'll make room for you. And then when I got to his place, he actually didn't have room for me. So it turned into, okay, well, I'm going to put you in a hotel for the night. And that one night turned into 8 months. Oh my God, you guys. Because every apartment that I looked at, every single time I looked at a place, I would call him and I'm like, okay, can you meet me here? I would tell him ahead of time, of course. And then he wouldn't meet me there until I would take video and send it to him. And he's like, no, oh my God, this neighborhood, I hate it. I felt like he was
Wait a second, Dawn, let's talk about it.
Okay, I would call him and I'm like, okay, can you meet me here? I would tell him ahead of time, of course. And then he wouldn't meet me there until I would take video and send it to him. And he's like, no, oh my God, this neighborhood, I hate it. I mean, I felt like he was playing games, and I knew he was playing games, and I wasn't the one. I'm like, come on, I'm trying to make this easier on you because financially, I know it's got to be hard. You're paying your rent and you're paying my hotel. His apartment was $1,700 a month. And then my hotel was over $3,000. Yep. So, and I was always stressed every week because he would pay weekly for the hotel. So every week I was like, oh my God, can you afford it? Are you okay? And he's like, no, I can't, but I'm getting it together. What? You're the one who said to go to the hotel, and you're not approving any of the apartments. Like, it would be so much cheaper to just get me into an apartment. Like, what's the problem?
Wow. Okay. First, let me just say this. I'm a little upset that anybody's playing Dawn from En Vogue. There's a lot of people out there. There's a billion people that would not have done that to you, Dawn. And whomever's doing that to you, curses upon you for doing that to Dawn from En Vogue. That was my childhood. Well, not childhood, but you know what I'm saying. Gee, I had a crush on Dawn. I ain't gonna lie. I thought she was the baddest one in that group. She was bad, boy. She still looked good, too, for living in a car for 3 years. Actually, she's not bad looking for a homeless lady. You know, it's probably the best looking homeless lady I've seen in ever. But let me just say this. Dawn is not a new musician or entertainer. She's been in the game. So my question would be, why doesn't she have her own hotel money by now in her career? Why would she be at the whim of some random manager dude for the last 3 years? You see what I'm saying? Like, at this point in her life, maybe when she was first starting with En Vogue, that story might have made sense to me. But at this point, it's like, well, what happened? I ain't seen you in a minute. So what's really been going on? And why are you living out of your car? And if this is the car, y'all see the background on the car? If this is the car, it looked like the ceiling is coming. You know, the ceiling get the smoke in it and start coming down slow, like in the old caddies. That's what that looked like. So I hope that's not the car. Or maybe she's got a truck and there's a curtain up. I don't know. But the point I'm trying to make is, you too damn old to be worrying about somebody paying for your hotel room. Love you though, Dawn. You was that. You could have hollered at a brother about 10 years ago. I'd have took care of you. You know what I'm saying? But you didn't say nothing. So here you go. Living in your car at this point in your life and career. There is something to be said about that. I'm hoping that Dawn finds a way out of that, because whatever story got you there, you need to tell some people so they don't ever do whatever the hell you did to end up in this position at this point in life and career. Like, you've already been a superstar. I'm sure she's been touring. She could just go sit around and talk to people. Hey, I'll have her on the podcast. I'd love it. Just to ask some questions about what the hell you've been doing for the last few years. Because when they had En Vogue performing at the All-Star game, the first thing I said was, where's Dawn? It ain't En Vogue without Dawn. And then 2 weeks later, that's where Dawn was. She was sleeping in the car, in a van, down by the river. And it's a sad, sad story. She is too old, too pretty, and too previously successful to be telling us that she's struggling waiting on some man to pay her hotel room bill. What happened, Dawn? What happened? Anyway, we move it into let's get back to the point at hand. So anybody that's, hey, Albon, special shouts jumping in the chat. I know Dawn might not be the smartest, but it wasn't smart to be expecting no grown person to be paying your grown ass hotel bill for 8 months and then some. To do what? You couldn't fit in their place? Whatever, man. It sounded like she got gamed, like straight up gamed, like regular dudes do to regular women. That's what it sounded like. Like she flew out for one thing and it turned into something else. And I just thought Dawn was past that in her life and career. And apparently, I was wrong. That, my friends, is some bullshit. So, bring it back over here. Let me bring back our focus. Focus. Somebody send Dawn a couple dollars, get her a coffee or something, all right? Let her know it's going to be all right. Free your mind, and the rest will follow. Didn't sound right without Dawn, man. All right, what's the next story on here? What we got? Okay, we got that. Got this. And okay. All right, so we have what looks like a bad idea submission. Yeah, looks like that. All right, let's see what we got. Let us see what we got. All right, so this is apparently a
and it's based on a patent filed in 1963.
Okay.
First, the pregnant woman is strapped onto the table, lying on her back. When labor begins, the table spins at a calculated speed. theoretically using centrifugal force to assist in delivering the baby. The table speed can reach up to 8G, which is equivalent to forces experienced by pilots during high-speed maneuvers in fighter jets.
This is so stupid.
The speed of rotation is adjusted dynamically depending on the mother's progress and the baby's position. This force is intended to assist the uterus in pushing the baby out naturally by supplementing the mother's own efforts. At the base of the rotating table, a soft cushioned receptacle or net is installed to catch the baby safely once it is expelled. The receptacle is designed to absorb the impact and gently cradle the newborn, preventing any injuries. The system features a bell that signals when the baby has been delivered, especially in case medical personnel are momentarily distracted. Once the baby is delivered, the table is stopped and the mother is unstrapped. The newborn is immediately taken for standard post-delivery medical checks. The apparatus includes a manual and automatic stop function to halt the rotation immediately if complications occur. The system limits the maximum rotation speed to avoid excessive forces that could harm the mother or the baby. The concept was developed by George and Charlotte Blonsky, a childless husband and wife duo with no medical background. George Blonsky, a mining engineer, and his wife were inspired during a visit to a zoo, where they observed an elephant giving birth. They noticed the elephant moved in a circular, almost spinning motion before delivering its calf. This behavior intrigued them and sparked the idea that centrifugal force could assist childbirth. Although the U.S. government awarded them a patent in 1965, their invention remained a theoretical concept and was never implemented in medical settings for reasons you can easily guess.
All right, so it was real, but they didn't really do it. It was an idea that somebody came up with, and they came up with, I guess, a diagram of how it works. They put that diagram into some type of an AI, which created this very funny, what would we call it, replication or whatever, reenactment of the facts. So no, it didn't actually happen, but somebody who had no children was making this decision that this is a way to give birth. How are you going to not even have kids and be trying to tell somebody the best way to have kids? That doesn't make any sense. All right, well, you know, folks were a little weird back in the day. They didn't have entertainment yet, so they were just coming up with wild shit and decided. And this is a married couple who didn't have no kids. They trying to tell other people how to do it. So there is a patent on this, so don't think about it. Don't hurt your babies, okay? Just don't hurt your babies. All right, let's see what else we got. No, you know what? Before I move on, I don't know if we got any ladies in the chat. Does anybody, or anybody in the chat, does anybody think that's a good idea as far as childbirth? I'm sure nobody does. I'm sure nobody does. That's freaking crazy. I mean, I've come up with some crazy ideas myself, so I'm not going to take it away from folks, but I'm just saying. It doesn't have to be like that, y'all. Violent Sneeze in the chat. I see you in there. Thank you for stopping in. Make sure you hit that like button, guys. Make sure you hit them likes. Hit the little reaction thing on the screen. You know that shit with the smileys and the confetti pop thing. Hit that. And the 100, hit that 100. Because we're keeping it real over here. All right, moving on. Let's see what else we got today. Sorry, I thought I heard my... Oh, wow. All right, well, since we're in the realm of parenting today, I'm just letting y'all know we are in the realm of parenting. Good parenting, bad parenting, parenting ideas, parenting fails. Parenting. Okay? Because I realized, you know, I've been talking a lot about politics lately, and I'm not really into politics like that. I'm not. You know, I'm into interesting topics, interesting news, but I'm not really into politics because the politics that they show on TV is not really the politics that affects locally like it should. And so I guess at some point I start looking a little closer to home, and that's where I want the changes to be made. I'm not saying I don't want federal changes to be made. I'm just saying a lot of them should be made closer to home. But anyway, this story,
All right. Y'all
Of tales
not
of
gonna believe
torture,
this.
abuse, and kidnapping coming.
Hold up. There, News 8. Hold up. I got to bring my people in on this one. All right, so apparently somebody was held captive for 20 years by their stepmother. We're going to find out what this is about. Hold on. All right, y'all can see it, right?
Tales of torture, abuse, and kidnapping coming out of Waterbury tonight. It was all discovered after police say a 32-year-old man set his room on fire in order to escape his stepmother.
That woman is now accused of holding him against his will for more than 20 years. News 8's Bob Wilson filed that story before heading to breaking news.
So today, all the details came out in court, in the court documents. 56-year-old Kimberly Sullivan, she's accused of just locking her stepson inside the bedroom for not only days, years, but decades.
What?
Her attorney says, wait, not so fast. That never happened.
Okay.
Police say a 32-year-old man told first responders that he intentionally set his upstairs room on fire by using a lighter, hand sanitizer, and paper because he wanted to be rescued and, quote, wanted his freedom.
It was like a bright orange, like it was just intense. The flame was in that window on the right.
Firefighters put out the blaze and pulled the man to safety. He told them that he'd been locked in his bedroom since he was 11 years old for more than 2 decades.
What?
He claims he drank water from the toilet because he was only given 2 glasses of water per day. According to the court affidavit, the man says he was pulled out of school after the school called the Department of Children and Families twice due to him constantly asking students for food during lunchtime because he was allegedly starved at home. Police say he suffered prolonged abuse, severe neglect, starvation, and inhumane treatment for more than 20 years. What? Police said he did not receive medical or dental care and was severely emaciated. They arrested his stepmother, 56-year-old Kimberly Sullivan, whose lawyers say that's not the real story.
He was not locked in the room. She did not restrain him in any way. She provided food. She provided shelter. She is blown away by these allegations.
Prosecutors charged Sullivan with 5 crimes for her alleged kidnapping and abuse. Her attorney says the biological father lived there for years until recently.
He was the biological father. He's the one that dictated how his son would be raised. We think as the evidence comes out, you will see that she's not the villain she's being made out to be.
I can't imagine how horrible his conditions were. This is insane. This is crazy. I mean, right next to our house, we're like 15 feet away.
Bond has been set at $300,000.
I'm going to tell you right now, if she didn't do anything at all, if there was nothing, a $300,000 bond just on the word of somebody who set their own place on fire just seems weird. I don't know on this one, guys. This one is interesting. But it said that he went to school at some point. This was years ago, because he's 32 now. So he was at school, I guess, 20 years ago when he was 12 or so, asking people for food. They either gave it to him or not. It doesn't matter. And then at some point, he's just living in the attic. And I heard what that lawyer said. The lawyer said, well, that wasn't her son, so it was up to the father who lived there until recently to dictate how the son was raised. So what they're saying to me, what I'm hearing is that shit did happen, but the lady was not the initial purveyor. She just kept it going after dad left or whatever happened with dad. And then the I would say kid, but the guy was like 32. Like, what are we talking about here? First of all, if I'm not restrained at 32, now, I don't know. They said the guy was, in the captions, it said that he was malnourished. So I believe he was like 100 pounds or something like that. And at 32 years old, fully grown man at like 100 pounds, you probably are malnourished. So I don't believe for a second that nothing was going on. I just don't know if that one lady was able to carry that out by herself. And it sounds like she didn't. It sounds like the dad had something to do with it, which is freaking crazy to me. But that's what it is, guys. That's what it is. So, wow. 20 years? And nobody came looking? See, this is what I be trying to tell y'all. Like, when stuff is happening,
and people don't ask questions, after a while, you become complicit in the situation. You notice that this kid ain't been around in 4 or 5 years. You notice that when he was around, he wasn't eating right or something. And nobody even cares no more, man. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So to a degree, if he was going to school at some point in time, I got to blame the school a little bit. Like, when does the school have a responsibility to call the authorities? Only what? If they see like a bruise on a kid? Or it's just totally up to them. I know that, right? But if they see like a bruise on a kid, they're supposed to basically call the authorities, right? Or if the kid says that they're not eating correctly or whatever, if there's something being kept from them that's like a necessity of life, they're supposed to call the authorities. So to some degree, whatever school he was going to when he was 11, 12 years old, like they said, I hold that school to account as well. Everybody is nobody gets a pass here. Not in this one. Not if he was already exhibiting the signs that there was a problem and then he disappears for 20 years and nobody comes asking. And then the father, they need to get the father on here. That's what they need to get. I don't know. There was more to it. I'm sure there was cocaine involved or one of those narcotics somewhere in it. I mean, this lady kind of looks like she does at least a couple of bumps in a day. You know, she has the look. I don't know for a fact, but I'm just saying she has the look. She's definitely got the costume on. She's got the cokehead costume on. So, all right, well, that's an interesting one. 20 years, huh? Boy, people don't care about nobody, man. I'm going to have to say that. I hate to say it that way, but if you think about it, like, how can you disappear for 20 years as a kid, right? And the school don't come looking. Don't nobody come. No aunts, uncles. Don't nobody cares about these kids no more. That's crazy. That's crazy. I guess that's bringing me right to where I was going today. Because, as you guys might know, the Department of Education, well, the federal Department of Education has been shut down, per se. And let's bring some stuff up, man. Let's bring some stuff up. I'm going to tell you right now, I have a very personal connection to this topic because of some current events that are going on. And I'm going to probably have to dig further into that as well, because the education system is divided up into different castes within the experience of school, right? You got the A students, you got the scholar athletes. Those are the kids that are good grades and they play a sport well. You know what I'm saying? You got the kids who are a little bit better with their hands, not as good in class, and you've got some of the kids that just goof off all the time. You got special ed students, you've got IEPs, you got all types of things going on in these schools. And a lot of it is quote unquote funded by the federal government. So with funding should come oversight. If y'all don't understand what that means, it's like, if I'm going to give you some money, I should be able to come back and audit and see that you did something with that money that was towards what I gave it to you for. And I believe that the lack of oversight is why they decided to cut the Department of Education. That's what I believe, okay? I also believe that they may be selling us a foul in trying to get people riled up about the federal Department of Education when our real issues lie with our local school districts. That's where the real changes are made to education. Not saying that nothing's done at the federal level, but we got to focus, okay? So I'm going to bring up the
you can't say he didn't.
Education secretary who appeared on, what is this? The Ingraham angle? Yes, the Ingraham angle, which is Laura Ingram angle. The Ingram angle. Okay, I got it now. I got it now. Here we go. So if y'all don't know, McMahon is this. She used to be part of WWE or one of the wrestling federations. You know, McMahon's that family line, and she's now the Department of Education head, Department of Education secretary, whatever. And she's basically fired like 50% of the entire federal Department of Education, closed the building down, and told everybody to go home. And there's a big uproar and a big to-do about this. So I wanted to hear what she's talking about, and we're going to go into this education system today because I got time, okay? So let's go through this real quick, all right? Let's go through this real quick. We're going to increase the playback speed. And let's hit it.
Warn you. Linda, I hope you do a great job and put yourself out of a job. I want her to put herself out of a job. Education Department.
All right, and a move that seems to portend the beginning of the end for the department that Republicans going back to Reagan pledged to abolish. The Department of Education today told staffers to vacate their offices by 6 p.m. because the offices were closing nationwide. The doors are now locked. Workers aren't going to be allowed back into the buildings until at least Thursday. When they do return, it'll be a more cozier group. Nearly half of the 4,100 workers are being cut in what the department is calling a reduction in force. President Trump addressed staff cuts in general today.
We want to cut people that aren't doing the job. We want to keep the right people.
Absolutely.
And I said, I don't want to just say we're going to cut 50%. I want to cut the people that aren't doing the job.
Joining me now, Department of Education Secretary Linda McMahon. Madam Secretary, great to have you in studio today. All right. First, welcome to the show, because you haven't been in studio with me before. Now, is this the first step on the road to a total shutdown?
Yes, actually it is, because that was the president's mandate, his directive to me. Clearly is to shut down the Department of Education, which we know we'll have to work with Congress, to get that accomplished. But what we did today was to take the first step of eliminating what I think is bureaucratic bloat. And that's not to say that a lot of the folks, it's a humanitarian thing too. A lot of the folks that are there, they're out of a job. But we wanted to make sure that we kept all of the right people and the good people to make sure that the outward-facing programs, the grants, the appropriations that come from Congress, all of that are being met, and none of that's going to fall through the cracks.
So that was my next question. So the criteria for keeping that 50% is related to expenditures and key programs?
Correct. Congress appropriates the money that is going through Title I to IDEA programs.
What's that stand for?
Do you know what? I'm not sure I can tell you exactly what it stands for, except that it's the programs for disabled and needs.
Individuals with Disabilities Act, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm guessing. I don't know. I don't know all my acronyms. I've been here for 30 years.
This is my 5th day on the job, and I'm really trying to learn them very quickly.
Right, it's a lot. So reports today said that the buildings were going to be closed for security reasons. What does that mean? Well,
when people left today and they got their notification to take their laptops and their phones home with them, and we didn't want part of the people who were being permanently let go and those who are remaining to some of them show up to work tomorrow morning.
That's standard corporate
practice. So it's
practice.
just standard corporate practice that we just locked the doors and said for those that are coming back, we'll know that they'll be coming back on Thursday morning.
Were people given a chance to take any personal effects?
They were told that they will be allowed to come back. We would arrange for them to come back and take their personal effects with them and to say goodbye to some folks too.
Randy Weingarten, you're shocked. I know you two are catching dinner in about 20 minutes, but she actually commented about what's going on here. Watch.
Think about a country whose president basically says, I'm getting rid of education. What does that say about the future? So many people are so mad about it because they're just taking opportunity away from kids that don't have it. So kids of billionaires, they have it.
Let's stay on the facts.
Sorry,
no,
I'm really angry about this.
No, because this
I'm
is what
really
people
angry.
need to.
Your reaction?
Well, clearly we're not taking away education. The president never said that. He's taken the bureaucracy out of education so that more money flows to the states. Better education is closest to the kids, with parents, with local superintendents, with local school boards. I think we'll see our scores go up with our students when we can educate them with parental input as well.
Well, she's very angry. And over the weekend, I posted on X that it would be nice if Randy were ever angry about the abysmal 8th grade and 4th grade reading and math proficiency. You see those numbers, like 18%, 22% of proficiency or above? In 4th and 8th grade, we rank near the bottom globally on these standards. It's shocking, given how much, and we're putting up a graphic, given how much we spend. I can't even, it's terrible.
Well, I'll tell you, it's unbelievable. And when you think about high school seniors that are graduating, only 30% of them are reading proficiently. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't read words, but they can't read cognitively. And that's what we're missing. You read to learn up until 3rd grade, and then after that, you're learning to read up until the end of 3rd grade, then you're reading to learn. And if you can't read after the end of 3rd grade, you're going to be behind in your reading. And so that's what we have to focus on.
Well, I say to my own kids, if you don't read, I'm not talking about this, by the way. I'm not talking about phones. I'm like, if you don't read real books, you probably can't write. True. You must read to write. Like I've been preaching this gospel. I'm not saying my kids are all that great at it, but it's just terrible. I want to ask on a personal level. You're a businesswoman, and you've known President Trump for a long time. This is a new world for you, this education department. How shocked were you, if at all, about how swampy it really is?
Well, this is my 5th day on the job. And so, I did serve in the first administration of SBA. But so when I got to the Department of Education, the president said, look, I need an executive, I need a leader in the department. And so when I got there and I found out, I said, okay, we have to identify where the bloat is, where the bureaucracy is, and we're going to start there. Because the programs, so many of the programs are really excellent. We need to make sure that money does get to the states. But we want more money to be able to go to the states. And that's what the president said all along. If we get rid of the bureaucracy, the states will get more. It'll go directly into the states.
Block grants to states.
Perhaps block grants without so many strings and red tape attached to it.
What's your interaction been with Elon Musk during your very brief tenure so far?
Well, it's been excellent. And I did co-chair the transition committee going into the administration, had a chance to work with him there. Have met with him twice. And we have Doge, a couple of the Doge, 3, I think, Doge fellows that are in our department. And I look at it as an audit. If you were in the private sector, this would be an audit. And turns up a lot of things in the audit. Some of you look at it and say, no, we can get rid of that. Others, no, this is the implication that you don't understand, so we can't get rid of that. So I think.
So they have read-only access to the files? To your grant files and so forth?
Well,
budget files?
Yeah, they're not changing any of the budgets. That sort. They're there to find out information, to make suggestions. But, the secretaries and the agency heads are actually the ones who run the departments and make the final decisions.
Well, it's great to have.
Okay. All right, so that was Linda McMahon talking about her reasoning behind the recent reduction in force of the Federal Department of Education. If you don't know, the Federal Department of Education funds Pell Grants, a lot of different grants for college. Certain minority grants, some of them. A lot of the minority grants come from small businesses, which is interesting. And like other businesses like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, corporate grants, which a lot of people don't know. They think everything comes from federal money. A lot of it doesn't come from federal money. Federal money funds schools for special programs, such as special ed and things like that. Because if you think about it, the food programs may be part of it, but a lot of the food programs are covered under the state's CHIP acts, right? So each state, like in certain states, everybody gets free lunch. It doesn't even, you don't even have to qualify under a certain like poverty level. Everybody can have a free lunch, which I think is probably the best. For the kids that don't have money to get their little whatever they want to get, they got a lunch. And for the kids that do have money and just want to buy freaking donuts and stuff instead of eating school lunch, they can do that. You know what I'm saying? I think that's a good idea. But I want y'all to understand that the Federal Department of Education closed down for a day. 50% of the staff was removed. But according to Linda McMahon, that is not going to affect what she called front-facing programs. So what the stuff I just mentioned, special education, Title I, Title IX, I think it is, monies, IEPs, 504s, all that kind of stuff. That she's saying they're not going to touch that. Okay, so there's a chance that there was a bunch of, you ever met somebody who has a job with a title that don't really mean much? It's like a beefed up secretary or something. Some of those jobs existed within the Board of Education, where they had people just kind of working there, not really doing much, but they had a title, and they used the titles to create these positions and jobs so that their budget can reflect those positions. Those positions also have raises associated with them, so they can inflate the budget for each department every year. But if the Department of Education's budget is inflated, then why does it seem like our kids are getting less educated? That's the question I have. So for me, I want to see where this goes for 2 reasons. One, because if they're wrong, it'll show up fast and an adjustment can be quickly made. But if they're right, then we can start to talk about some of these school districts and how they're misappropriating the money that's actually being sent from the Federal Department of Education. Doge is on the federal level, but I, from my own personal experience, would lean towards believing and understanding that the local school districts who are receiving money are misappropriating those funds and not getting certain kids the tools that they need. And they put a lot of these kids in these special education programs in order to get these funds for their school, but they don't necessarily transfer those funds directly to the student to which they're getting the funds for. And we're going to talk about that, okay? So for those of you that are outraged about the Federal Department of Education being closed down, I want you to keep your outrage contained to the fact that there are people that are losing jobs, okay? Somebody's going to not have a job. Somebody's going to have to deal with that struggle. From what I understand, though, they're not going to be, without anything. I think they get a severance package for a few months and stuff like that. So if you give anybody a few months of pay and time, they can utilize their time to find a new gig, and they have plenty of pay so their bills don't fall behind. So that's not a bad deal if that's how you're going to let people go, is all I'm saying. It's way better than just kicking everybody out, cutting off everybody's money, and causing homeless people, So I'll give them that. I will give them that. But give me a second here. Let me bring up a clip here. Because we're going to get into this issue of special education and IEPs, okay? For those that aren't in this realm, it's fine. This is a very special episode, and like I said, it's surrounding my own personal battle that I'm dealing with a particular school system regarding IEPs, education, and future focus. So because of that, I'm bringing it to those who may or may not need to have some understanding of it. Now, before we get into Umar's situation, please explain the history. I want you to understand that if you've heard this other thing about Umar with his daughter, and he's a deadbeat dad and all that, hey, we're not here to have that discussion. If that's how you feel, that's fine. Umar Johnson is a trained school psychologist. He's educated, and some of the stuff that he says is very poignant. So I want to make sure that when he does have a good message, that I'm able to project that message out, because not everything that he says is bullshit, okay? We don't know about this school. It is what it is, okay? But when it comes to special education and IEPs, because he was the school psychologist, he has a very interesting perspective on it, and I think you guys should really see it.
Explain the history of the IEP, individual education program, and how it's supposed to work in theory versus how it works in reality.
Clip too.
Great question. So when we talk about IEP, individual education plan, we're talking about the world of special education. Now, there's three things that automatically go together when we're dealing with IEP. It's a trinity. You can't have one without the others. They are the IEP, a learning disability classification, and special education. If you mention any one of those, the other two are automatically present. Special education is a program that gives the child an IEP because they have a learning disability. No learning disability, no IEP. If you have an IEP, you're in special ed. They all go together. I say that because sometimes you'll hear parents say, my child has an IEP, but he's not in special ed. If he has an IEP, he's in special ed on paper. The school's getting money for his education. He may not be assigned to a self-contained classroom. He may still be in a regular class, but he's still a special ed student. They're still getting paid for him. Here's the issue with special ed. If children did not receive a special ed subsidy, there would be no special ed. First of all, let's be clear. The only reason why New Jersey, Philly, Maryland, California, Texas, I don't care where you go, we can go down to the American islands. We can go down to St. Thomas and St. Croix. Same thing. The schools are putting black kids in special ed because they want that money. Let me give you an analogy.
Now, let me say this. Like I said, Umar has an interesting way of putting things, but I will say this. In my memory, when I was a kid, the special education kids were like special education kids. They got the short bus. A lot of them had headgear on. You know what I'm saying? That was special education. Everybody else was in the regular classes. Everybody else was dealing with the same social circles. Now if you were stupid or slow or whatever, you might get picked on, but you were in with the rest if you didn't have a severe mental disability. Like if you were just a goofy ass kid, you talk too much like me, you was in with the regulars. Being a jumper and a runner did not put you into the ADHD category that put you into what they call special education. So somewhere along the lines that changed and this IEP thing happened. I need to look into when that started because I know for a fact, just looking back on it, there was some kids that didn't do as well in certain classes, right? So they might end up in a class behind, in my class, while I'm one grade behind them, right? That would happen. But the special education kids were, like I said, they were special education kids. They were, they needed a specialized education because they had a severe mental disability. They weren't just, goofing off in class in first grade. See my point? So, and they're putting these IEPs on kids early, like first grade, when they're still goofing off. They're just getting used to even being in school. They were just getting their pamper changed 2 years before. You see what I'm saying? So, anyway, let me let Umar
You a principal in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. 70% of your students qualify for free and reduced lunch. 60% come from single homes. None of them are reading on grade level. You know why they're not reading on grade level, because your teachers aren't teaching them. You know the feeder school didn't prepare them. So you have a decision. You're either going to tap into your Title I money and get those children the extra help that they need, or you're going to send them to the school psychologist. If you send them to the school psychologist, you're going to get a 100% increase in that child's funding. Special ed students are worth twice as much as the regular. So for example, let's take Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia school students probably get about, hypothetically, approximately $15,000 per student, right? Once they go in special ed, that child is worth almost 30 now. 30. It's a double your money. How many people you know, if they got a chance to double their money, are not going to double it? So sticking with you as the black principal, do you care about them kids? Because if you care about your students, you're going to make the teachers teach them. You're going to find the money in your budget to get them to after-school tutoring. Mind you, you already get Title I money. You already getting Title I. Title I funds comes out of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, Lyndon Baines Johnson, War on Poverty, 1965. This money is earmarked for children in low-income schools to improve what? Reading and math. What are most black kids in special ed for? Reading and math. So if you're getting Title I money to address reading and math, why are all these children with reading and math problems ending up in special ed where you were already given money to help them? You know why? Poor oversight of Title I spending and greed. I know I got my Title I money, but I'm going to use that for something else. I want this extra special ed money. It's about greed and it is about neglect of black children. And here's the big thing. Our parents, brother. This whole system of special ed to prison, the whole special ed to prison pipeline is held together by uneducated. When I say uneducated, I'm not talking about academically. Uneducated about special education. So black parents don't understand that special ed is not a solution. I don't fault them for that because the way they pitch it to you in a way that makes you feel like special ed is the best thing that ever happened to black children. He'll never get left back again. He'll get extra time. He'll get extra time on his tests. We're going to slow down the curriculum. We're going to give him his own learning plan, small group.
I got this one question real quick, right? I noticed then, I taught for 5 years in Philadelphia public school, right? And with the SPED kids, do they have to pass them or do they pass them so they don't have to show the paperwork for failing to give them service?
Great question. Are schools required to promote special education students? The issue is this. The IEP team determines what the child is going to learn while they're in special ed. Mm-hmm. So who technically decides if that child gets retained or promoted? The IEP team. Who's on the IEP team? 4 required people: the parent, the principal or designee, the regular ed teacher, and the special ed teacher. These 4 people meet every year to do a new IEP. The IEP must be done annually because you move up in grade annually, right? So when you meet, you decide as a team, he needs to repeat. That's not likely to happen in special ed for 3 reasons. Legally, can they be retained? Yes. A special ed child can be retained. Absolutely. I've retained them before, but it's not likely to happen. Why? 3 reasons. Number 1, what is the job of the IEP team? To monitor progress. To monitor progress. So if this kid has an IEP and he still can't read or hasn't made reading progress to the point where you have to consider retaining him,
Justify your job.
Where was the progress monitor? You got to justify your job. How, at the end of the year, are we talking about keeping them back when the whole purpose of the IEP is the pushing forward? That's number one. Number two, when the state and the feds come in to audit your books, if they see too many special ed kids being retained, it lets them know you're not really helping them. Number three, the teacher who initially referred him for special ed, why did she want him tested in the first place? It wasn't for academics most of the time. It was for behavior. So you mean to tell me you're going to go right back to the same teacher who had him put in special ed and say, we're sorry, Mrs. Slovenberg, he's going to have to repeat third grade. She's going to look at you like you're crazy. The reason I put him in special ed is to get him out my class. And you're telling me I'm stuck with him for another year. That's why special ed kids are rarely retained. And I think it's a problem, brother, because we have special ed kids being socially promoted who don't know anything, who go to school in states with a graduation examination. If you live in a state that has a graduation exam and you've been socially promoted all through special ed, when you get to 12th grade, you got to take that test. You can barely read. You know what it does? It automatically perpetuates the school to prison pipeline because you're going to drop out because you can't pass. You don't get a diploma. What is life going to be for that special ed kid who was socially promoted from first grade when he first got his IEP till 12th grade when he failed the graduation test? He don't have a diploma. He's on the street. Drugs, guns, the military not even going to take him if he can't get a GED. And a lot of these brothers we see on the corner selling dope, they were the special ed children who were not academically prepared for life, and they ended up on the street because they had nowhere else to go after they failed the graduation test.
And you made a great point. And one more thing I want to add, that they're spiritually demoralized. They don't feel they can accomplish anything. Because don't get it twisted. The kids sit there and know they haven't done anything.
Yes, sir.
Has.
Yes, sir.
Year after year.
Yes, sir. And they know that they're allowed to they know that they're allowed to exist in an atmosphere of mediocrity. They know they don't have to perform. They know that they don't have to achieve. And the biggest side effect of special ed, and this is why I always tell parents, I tell teachers, never tell your child that they have this disability.
Because
before you tell him he has ADHD, before you tell him he's reading disabled, before you tell her she's intellectually disabled, she thinks she can make it. Do you feel me? They do not see no difference between themselves and the next student. But the minute you tell them you're reading disabled, you emotionally disturbed, you just created a glass ceiling. It's a self-perpetuating prophecy that the child is now going to live up to. I was told I got a reading disability. I don't have to try. I don't have to study. I don't have to do homework. And so for me, the number one side effect of putting kids in special ed who don't need it is the low self-esteem, the low self-worth that it engenders in the child. And let us be clear, special ed kids have one of the highest dropout rates. Well, what do you expect? Nobody believes in me, not the teacher. And then once the other students in the school find out that that's the special ed class, it's over. Because they're going to pick on me forever to the point where I don't even want to show up to school because everybody know I'm special.
Well, I would like to first thank Umar for not saying the stuff 3-4 times like he be doing. It was a pretty good Keith, thanks for stopping into the chat there. So we're dealing with the last school teens we're going to. They're going to end up being homeschooled. And they need to be honest with you. Like I said, I'm going to dig in a little bit deeper into the issue I personally am facing with special education programs. But a lot of people don't even understand the history of the IEPs, special education, and things like that. And these were the things that this so-called federal Department of Education were funding. So as far as I'm concerned, if the funding was coming from the Department of Education and the kids are getting dumber, then you know what? Whatever that process wasn't working. So if they want to break it down and rebuild it into a working, functional process, I'm all for that. Whatever that takes. It might be a mess first, but whatever that takes. But Umar gets into it. And like I said, I'm doing this one with Umar because for once he likes to repeat himself a lot in his lives, but in these interviews he's very straightforward, and I like that. That's probably why I like these particular clips, because he's making his point. He's being very eloquent with his speech. He's not wilding out, and it's because he does have a mind for education. Like I said, even if that school never came to be, the idea was a decent idea. I understood what he was standing for at the time. But, you know, black people ain't going to come together to build no schools. That's not, we don't do that. We don't do that. So I'm going to take you to the second clip so that you understand the
majority of the children will be special ed.
All right. Let me just say this. Like I said, for those who are not parents, you might be missing this particular episode ain't for you. But this is for those of us who still have children in school, middle school, high school, kids, especially those who have been placed in IEP programs, special education for behavioral issues, not academic. See, academic is different. I can't learn because something's not right up here. But because you was goofing off in class in the first grade to the third grade, that's the parents I'm talking to. Because once you get in that situation and the school is receiving money specifically for your child, that money's now worked into their budget. They don't want your kid to ever come off of special ed. You see what I'm saying? Once you on it, you on it. Because at that point, it becomes part of the budget. So putting your children on a special education IEP program because they don't want to sit the hell down, that's not always the best idea. You just got to teach them some discipline. And maybe you got to be a little more involved with certain kids. But behavioral issues, the kid that's talking too much or goofing off too much or likes to hum, because I've heard that one before, the kid be humming in the class too much. That's not a learning disability. He's just being a kid. Or she's just being a kid, because this is both sexes. And it's not just black children. I know Umar focuses on the black, and that's Umar. But I've been in different school systems. He was in Philly in a predominantly black school system, so his angle comes directly from that. My angle comes from being in very diverse areas, upper middle class areas, and watching the differences of education between the kids that were doing well and the kids they don't really feel like dealing with. So I know personally of a story of a kid who literally was put on special education IEP in the first grade in the midst of his parents going through a divorce, and he was acting out in school. And instead of just understanding that this child was going through the divorce of his parents, they said he was special education. So I'm going to let Umar say his little piece about special education specifically. We talked about the IEP last time. Now we're going to talk about the special education, the role of it, right? And how it actually works. But yeah, I'm talking about a kid. We know the kid is in the middle of a parental custody battle and is acting out in school. How the hell is that a learning disability? What that is he's going through something, and we need to keep an eye on what this kid is going through instead of being so worried that he keeps joking around in class. Anyway.
I think if we're talking about the American African children, a good deal of them are going to be special ed. If they're in a predominantly black community, they're going to end up being special ed because white teachers don't want to be bothered teaching. Another reason they're going to be special ed, black parents have been miseducated to think that special ed helps their children. A third reason they're going to be special ed is due to the funding. In struggling schools, the special ed dollar is the only guaranteed extra dollar you can get. Therefore, schools parasitically exploit the learning difficulties of black children for money, even when they know there's not a real organic learning disability there. So the hustle is real. More money, more problems is what Notorious B.I.G. say. I would say more problems, more money is the motto of special ed. The worse you make the child look, the more money you get for them.
But good
the other
information is good
situation,
information.
if you're talking about a predominantly white school district, they're going to end up in special ed because they don't want them in the classrooms. I think where black parents go wrong with taking children out of black school districts and putting them in white school districts is they fail to remember the history. Our biggest explosion in independent schools in America took place between 54 and 74. The Brown decision in special ed. White people, after the Brown decision, they decided that they were going to just retreat into the suburb and give their child a private education to keep them away from black children. So when they ran from the inner city, which was part of the white flight, it wasn't just residential, it was educational as well. I don't want my children going to school with black children unless my white daughter falls in love with a black boy. And so in that retreat, they barricaded their children away from ours. So when that black family shows up in that private school or suburban public school, either or, because you're still showing up in an area where you're not wanted, when you show up, your child is more likely to be special educated or medicated because they're not wanted. The way white people see it, we inconvenienced ourselves to get away from you. And you have the audacity to move out here or somehow make a way for your child to attend school out here. So that
just to let y'all know in the chat, especially if you're new to the channel, Umar he's a black Pan-Africanist. So everything that he says will come from a black angle. We, as objective Publicrats here at Purge the BS, are able to insert the proper words that add additional context. So Keith is 100% correct. It is not just black kids and parents. It's Keith in the chat. For those who catch this later, you won't see the chat, but whatever. It is not just black kids and parents. It is just kids and parents. Because this is going on everywhere. It's in the suburban schools, like I said. The special ed kids are not just black kids. In urban areas where it's predominantly black, yes, they're going to be mostly black kids because the area is black. But if you go into the diverse areas, you'll start to see, what you won't see is Asian kids in the damn special education. You will not see that. And I mean like the traditional Asian, okay? You know what I'm saying? You'll never see them in no special ed class. Not never. And is that because they got better brains or bigger brains? Nope. That's because when somebody approached their kid with some goofy shit about an IEP, they were like, hell no. Get them a tutor. Make sure the tutor's there to understand the actual assignments that the kid is working on, or whatever the situation is. But I'll never see no Asian kids in special ed. That's all I'm saying. Never. I ain't never seen it. You want to show me one unless he's got a severe mental disability. That's what I'm saying, like Down syndrome or something like that. No, I'm talking about just a kid at school that be goofing around a little bit. I ain't never seen no Asian kid in no damn special education. And Donald J. Plump, you know what I'm talking about, because Asia is a lot. It's a large, you got Pakistan. You know, Pakistan is you don't think Asian when you think of Pakistan, but Pakistan's in Asia. So I'm talking, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to say it because the YouTube is going to tell me it was hate speech or something, but you know what I'm talking about. The people that, you know what I'm talking about. Bruce Lee types, okay? Those Asians. All right, so nonetheless, I'm going to let Umar finish his little thing. But you're right, Keith, there's discipline involved. It takes a community to raise the children. But if you allow these people to sell you on this dream of this specialized education that never really happens, it never really happens. What does occur is they start allowing your kid to just do dumb shit, and then they blame it on this so-called disease that they may or may not even have. Then they start feeding them full of drugs. They got all types of weird side effects. Kids falling asleep in class like they on Suboxone or something. You know what I'm saying? All for the sake of what? Not even just because they don't want them to make noise. They don't want them to hum in the back of the class. So now you're in special education because you sing too fucking much. And I'm not playing. This is real I'm talking about because I know it personally. And me personally, I don't like any of it. Now, unfortunately, in my situation, I don't have the agreement on the other side of a parenting because some people believe the hype about these IEPs. But after going through it for 7 years and the kid's still struggling, I'm telling you, it didn't work 7 years ago, and now it's 7 years in the future, and it still ain't working. So who was right, who was wrong? So can we change this thing now? That's all I'm saying. But let me let Umar finish his part before I get into my shit. Because I'm too through with this. We all mad about the damn Department of Education. No, I'm mad about what was happening to the money that they were sending to the local districts for the students. For all of the students, not just the ones they like, that they see as successful, that they want to put in the GT programs, that they want to put in the little after-school joints and have them meeting up with the special chess teams and all that shit. When they like you, they send letters home. Hey, your kid might, benefit from this program we have or this after-school thing. If they don't like you, you don't get nothing but absence notes and complaints. That's it. Freaking ridiculous. Anyway, let's go through
agenda to special educate, it quadruples, which is ironic in the minds of a lot of black parents because on paper, my child should do better out here. They got the highest test scores. They're one of the best schools in the state. They're one of the best schools in the country. But yet they're telling me my child needs special ed. They're telling me he needs psychiatric medication. And my message to those parents is, what else did you expect to happen? White people came out here to get away from you. And here you are chasing them out there to the suburbs to stick your child in their private school or their suburban public school. So what they're going to do, they're going to intensify the special education agenda against you. I was part of a class action lawsuit, Lower Merion High School, Kobe Bryant's alma mater, that was put on by the Public Interest Law Center in Philadelphia. I was one of the expert certified school psychologist witnesses. And we found that they were putting children in special ed for learning disabilities who had no learning disability at all. Not only did they not have a learning disability, they were not even academically deficient. So this wasn't a question of skills deficiency versus learning disability. They were not even behind.
And this is another issue I have with this whole influx of special education is that the kids are basically being graduated without doing work for the most part because they're just pushed through. The accountability seems to be very low. Now you have a large population of people going into society with no basic skills to contribute to society. That's like my biggest concern. And I've witnessed this firsthand. I've seen a large portion of kids just get pushed through school who were considered special ed, and they don't have any skill set to earn or do anything after school. And that's my biggest concern because when you put these kids in the environment, it seems like they really internalize this idea about themselves. Their confidence is crushed, and it hurts their earning potential long term because they themselves aren't putting in work or think they're capable of putting in the work that'll put them in a position to earn long term.
I'm gonna go back to something I said during our first interview and tie it in to what I want to say now. When we discussed something similar, and I brought up the fact that in special ed, children are graded based on progress towards the IEP goal, not state standard. Parents are not told this. So you're being socially promoted. Special ed is legal social promotion. It absolutely is, because you're graded based on progress towards the IEP goal. So if I'm a fifth grader.
Until you get to high school, depending on where you at. When you get to high school, then it's a little different. You still got to meet certain credit minimums, but they haven't prepared the kid for high school. So they come into high school, and high school is expecting them to know something, and they start failing everything. That's what seems to be happening now. And that's why these kids are not reading on the right grade level, because they got pushed through when they were at the lower grade levels. So when they get to a certain point where they got to take state standardized tests, they're normally not that good at them. So Lindsay in the chat, thank you for stopping in over here. It seems like we got a couple of folks who are dealing with this same kind of thing. Like I said, I'm going through my thing right now, and I'm going to finish off with that. But I'm going to let Umar finish his little speech here as well. Because like I said, if you've ever watched Umar Johnson on his normal stuff when he's going live, he will say the same line like 4 or 5 times. It's very annoying. So it's hard for me to take in the point. But in these 2 particular videos, he didn't do that. And I think it's because he was 100% focused on saying what it was he had to say. I mean, it was very important to him. And that's why I received this particular message, okay? Now, all the stuff about his daughter and whether or not he's a deadbeat dad, we're not covering that. Everybody's talking about that right now. But at the end of the day, we don't know the situation between him and the mother. We don't know, okay? We know he was paying child support and he paid every cent that he was supposed to, and the rest we don't know. So I leave it to the, you see what I'm saying? I leave it to the ether at that point. I don't know nothing but that. That's enough. That's his family. Whatever.
Reading on the 2nd grade level, and my parents allowed my IEP team to get away with creating a reading goal that says I'm only going to be reading on the 3rd grade level next year. I'm going to get an A on my report card because I'm making steady progress towards that 3rd grade goal. But I'm a 5th grader. So even if I meet this annual goal, I'm still 2 grades beneath. But my parents are not comprehending that they're still setting me up for failure, although it appears like I'm making progress.
That's the other problem.
So what happens is,
anyway, sorry.
You go through enough IEP rotations, 1 a year, required by law, 1 IEP meeting a year, and it looks like the child is making progress, but what the parent is not perceiving is his progress is so small compared to the children in the regular classroom that every year he goes up, the gap between him and the others is still getting wider because you're only moving up 1 grade and you're already a few grades behind. The regular children are moving up an entire full grade based on state standard. You're moving up maybe a full grade, but on 3rd grade level. So this is how you're in the 5th grade reading on the 2nd, You're in the 7th grade reading on the 3rd. You're in the 8th grade reading on the 5th. You're in the 10th grade. The gap is getting wider and wider. And then what happens is this. The parent finally finds out my child is not academically functional for graduation.
Here we go.
The school district says, uh-oh, we messed up. We really didn't make sure this kid received their free and appropriate public education. Now, special ed doesn't have to end until age 21. The right thing to do is what? Not give him a diploma, let him continue. He don't have to stay in the school. The special ed teacher can come to the home, they can meet at the library, they can meet at the community college. He don't have to stay in school. IEP is 3 to 21. I had this case with Lower Marion, once again. I'm not sure if this was part of the class action lawsuit.
Thompson in the chat, thanks for stopping in.
He's about to graduate. He was put in special ed in the 1st grade, I believe it was. He went 12 years. Time to graduate, not academically functional. I told the attorney and I told his mother, give the diploma back. They're not done. He's 17, about to turn 18. They got 3 more years. Special ed ends with a diploma or age 21, whichever comes first. Your son got 3 more years. Give the diploma back. I don't know what became of that situation, but that was my recommendation, and they did win a settlement from the school district. But my point is this. The school district, when that child is about to graduate, will say, this parent has grounds to take us to due process. They can get comp ed, which means all the money, all the special ed money that was ever given to that child is now due to the family. It doesn't go to the parent in a check. It goes into an escrow. You build a school district for services until you use the money up. So whether that's tutoring, whether that's therapy, whether that's trade school training, whatever you want to do, they owe you comp ed. Compensatory education is reparations for miseducation, right? It literally is. We're going to pay you reparations for damaging your child. Most school districts are not going to do that, though. They're not going to tell the parent we failed your child. They're not going to tell the parent he don't have to graduate. They're not going to tell the parent we owe you comp ed. You know what they're going to do out of guilt and to protect themselves from any legal ramification? Socially graduating.
Yep.
Socially graduating. And sometimes the black teachers who care will socially graduate them because they're looking at the parent, not too concerned. They're looking at the school. He ain't going to learn nothing hanging around here. I'm going to socially graduate him and hope he get his life together on the other side because the options that are available to me, none of them seem promising for this child. So I've seen where the teachers say, listen, Dr. Umar, if we fail him, you know he's not coming back. He's never going to get a diploma. He's not going to take the GED. And by the way, they made the GED even tougher now. So if you want to drop out and just take the GED, it's tough to pass the GED now because they made that more strenuous.
Explain real quick how they made the GED tougher.
They intensified the verbal. They intensified the quantitative. They intensified the writing requirement. It's a lot tougher now than it was before. And you know why they did this? Because once they had that wave of mandatory graduation tests that swept the country about 10 years ago, when all the states started saying you're going to have to pass a test to graduate, that's when they said, well, they're just going to drop out and take the GED. So they said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make the GED even more strenuous to serve as a deterrent away from children dropping out and taking a GED and try to earn your high school diploma. So New York, I believe they have graduation exit exam. Jersey, who has the regents? New York has the regents or New Jersey has the regents? I think both of them have a graduation test. Pennsylvania tabled theirs, but I think it's coming back. But right now, nearly half the states have mandatory graduation exam. And for a lot of them, that 12th grade state standardized assessment that you've always taken is now the graduation exam.
All right. Well, so y'all heard about special education. You've heard about the IEP. And now you're going to hear what I have to say about it. And I want to thank you guys for interacting in the chat. I know this, like I said, it's a different episode than normal. I didn't go through my normal comedy part of it in the beginning, and but it's just really, it's really become something that's like a front street for me, only because I guess right now because I'm dealing with it, and I realize now that what occurred is, I was not necessarily brainwashed, but at least one party in that meeting was. And because of current day, I guess you would say, stereotypes or perceived whatevers, parents can be removed or at least isolated out of their children's education. And that is a problem for me. So let me take it there. Let me take it all the way through what we've talked about today. So we have a reduction in force in the Department of Education, the federal Department of Education, right? And this federal Department of Education dropped 50% of their department's workforce, okay? Now, if you're a student or a parent, this might affect you directly. The department oversees big programs like the Pell Grants, student loans, and of course, special education, which we talked about. The stuff that kind of keeps the schools running, keeps the schools funding, or at least That's the perception of it, right? But I personally have never actually tracked the funds that are given to the school for special education, specifically for a student that would be my child. I've never actually gotten an invoice to say we paid this much for this and we paid this much for that. No. So a lot of people are upset about the Department of Education itself at the federal level closing down, but there's other people that see it differently, because the department is saying that this is moving about $500 million a year back into currency that can be sent to the states and possibly to the people if they decide to give people money back. But I don't even need the money back. If you give it to the schools and we can actually utilize it for what it should be used for, then I'm okay with that. So the main thing is that my argument and most people's argument is that the federal government has been like bloating up their expenditures, and for some reason, at the same time as going up in expense, it's going down in the quality of education. Programs have been cut, things like driver's ed, wood shop, a lot of sports programs get cut. You know, just over the last few years, it's gotten to the point, I remember there used to be a time where you had like a physical something every day to get some of that energy up off of you. You used to have, you know, you started with recess in elementary school, and when you were in high school, you had PE, you had to climb the rope. You know what I'm saying, and do the vault jump thing and all that kind of stuff that you don't even regularly do, but you got a lot of physical activity out of it. They cut all of that out. They cut out after school programs such as they had like a homework programs. They started cutting those out, and everything just is gone at this point. So if you're not part of the group of kids that gets kind of that special treatment, there's nothing for you to do. There's nothing for you to do. So here's where the flip side is, right? They say that slashing the department risks dismantling the whole system that ensures equal access to education. Now, I don't personally believe that that's what was happening, is that access to education was equal. Yeah, you go to the school, but there are things that your child will need specifically, especially if they put them on special education, that when you ask about, they will not do. Now, I understand that to some degree, they may not have the freedom to do certain things, but in a lot of cases, they just don't want to do it. I'm a lot of parents are like me, a lot of them, where we basically have information, but we're not allowed to be truly involved. You see what I'm saying? I know it sounds crazy. 1 second here. Let me go through my list here. Hold on. All right, so that's that one, that's that one, that's that one, that's that one. Okay. And we got that. All right, so basically, sorry I had to bring up this the actual document that they gave to the U.S. Department of Education, because I want y'all to see it, just so y'all can be on the same page with me. So here's the thing, all right? I'm gonna personalize this to a degree. I know a particular student who is on special education or in a special education program, has a full-blown IEP, and the Department of Education does fund a school for them, and they apparently get these like specialized programs, specialized tools and things like that. And in my opinion, none of that shit been working, okay? And the reason why it hasn't been working is because the one thing that the child needs, which is full-blown parental involvement in their education, is not being allowed. I'll tell you how that works, okay? There are certain situations where parents, right, are not together, right? It's crazy, right? It sounds crazy that that would happen, right? So parents are not together, but they have a child that's in school. That school has an IEP. That IEP has certain recommendations, right? Each parent will be present for that meeting. They normally, now let me be honest, if you are considered a non-custodial parent, you won't get an invitation to that meeting unless you ask for it. We'll start with that. So even if you get the invitation to the meeting as a non-custodial parent, for some weird reason, at least in certain states, the non-custodial parent has no say-so in the IEP. It's always the custodial parent. And that's partially because of the fact that the custodial parent is where the kid goes to school from. But just because a child attends school in your district doesn't mean that you are the end-all, be-all of what's the best for their education. But for whatever reason, the school system seems to go in that direction. What I'm realizing now is that there are some real-world effects where they say that special ed kids will suffer the most from this federal Department of Education shutdown. And me personally, I haven't been able to call the federal Department of Education for anything that's had to do with school, whether it was particular tools not being allowed or put forward, or certain behaviors of teachers. I'm always dealing with the district. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm fed up with the shit. Let me tell you what goes on in these districts. They get money for your kid. They don't want your kid to not be on special education. So if the parents don't agree on certain things with the IEP, or if the parents disagree as to whether or not there should be an IEP, they will say to you, we'll do it temporarily for 1 year, right? And then we'll come back in a year and we'll discuss whether or not this IEP needs to continue. That is a ploy, a plot, and is a total lie. Because when you come back the year later, they will find some reason to continue this IEP. Then they'll make recommendations. They'll send your kid to a psychiatrist, which is the drug dealer. The psychiatrist will give them a bunch of drugs that either don't work or work too well. Now your kid's asleep. Now they get in trouble for going to sleeping class. Then they suspend your kid for, acting out a little bit. Then they don't send them with any work while they're suspended. Like, they literally just start sabotaging their whole freaking education. But they still push them through until they get to late high school. And then all of a sudden they say, oh, they don't have the credits to graduate. So they put them in night school and all this stuff to kind of rush them through, get them some passing grades. A few of the teachers write off, hey, he passed in this. It becomes pass-fail, not A through E. It becomes pass-fail. So whatever their passing requirement is, that then becomes the thing. So they're pushing our kids through. But in certain cases, you will have parents that don't care about their kids' education. And you will have a non-custodial parent that does care about the kid's education. But because the custodial parent doesn't care about the kid's education, they will basically instruct the school to oust the parent that does care. So if a parent, let's say, wants to help their child with homework remotely, they will stop that. And then the school will say, well, we can't force that, even if they know that that would help the kid. All because of some perceived parental right that one parent has over the other, when the end goal should be the education of the child. That's what the end goal is supposed to be, right? So why would a father, or let's just say a non-custodial parent, because sometimes that happens on either side, I'll be real. Why would a non-custodial parent have to argue with the school regarding discipline issues? Like if the kid's getting suspended, why does the non-custodial parent have to find out after the fact? Why are they not able to talk to the kid when they get in trouble? The reason why is because the custodial parent said they can't do it. Here's the funny part. At the end of the day, the child is the one that suffers the most. We all know this, right? So if a school system sees this dynamic, they see a mom and a dad, right? The dad wants to help with the kid's education, but mom is on some goofy stuff and don't want the dad to help, and doesn't want the kid to talk to their dad, or doesn't want the kid to see their dad, like on some, that kind of situation, right? The school instead of taking the child's education as the first and most important piece, will literally say, hey, we're going to stay out of it because that's the custodial parent. And they will sit back and watch your child just fail. They'll complain about the child failing, but they'll never say to the mother, hey, let this mother talk to his dad. Even though they can see that that's the problem. So they'll take you around every other bend, even when the person is saying, hey, this is the problem. This is what I would like to do to resolve it. And they won't even give you an option to do that as a parent. And it's all because we've drawn these invisible lines in court orders. You know how court orders work? Is if it ain't in there, it's you can or can't. It's totally up to the parties to figure it out. So if you have a court order that doesn't specifically say, as a non-custodial, if it doesn't specifically say that you can speak directly to the child during the time that you don't have visitation, while they're at school, like if they get in trouble, if there's nothing that specifically says that, if the custodial parent tells the school not to do so, you got to deal with that directly. When the school should be like, why should we listen to you? If the kid needs to talk to their dad, why should we care? We should just let them talk to him. That might calm them down, right? Nope, that's not what they want. They don't want to have to hear it from the other parent. So whose rights are really being inflicted on right here? Kids in special education, we're getting extra money for the tools to help them. If those tools require further involvement of their non-custodial parent, because we haven't tried that in all these years that we've been complaining about the shit, it's literally like, what are you supposed to do aside from waiting for your child to become a total failure and then trying to sue the school district after the fact? Me, for one, I don't have time for that shit. I'm going to tell you right now, we need to stop allowing people, teachers, if you're watching me, if you're a teacher or an administrator or anything like that, if you happen to come across this video, your words mean the most. You should see how hard it is to get a teacher to give some type of an opinion in a court case when they've seen your kid every day. The school guidance counselor talks to your kid all the time. But to get them to just say, hey, your kid says all the time that he doesn't like the situation and he would rather live with his dad, right? Let's say that kid is screaming to the rooftops at the school about that. They will not allow you to have that information. They can tell you, but they won't show up and allow it to be official. They will watch your child literally not be successful. They'll complain about it. They'll see that there's conflict between the parents, and they never address the so-called custodial parent who's actually the root of the conflict. Because that's the custodial parent. If it's the non-custodial, they don't care about telling you get the hell out. Get out the way. But we also have to remember, not every kid that's in that situation is doing badly. So if, let's say your kid's getting straight A's or whatever, then, you know, there really shouldn't be much that another parent has to do to involve themselves in the kid's day-to-day education. But if the parent wants to do so, why would they stand in the way of that? You know why? Because there's no money in his success. There is no money in that child's success. Once they put them on that IEP, the money is in their unsuccess. If they do too well, they don't need to be in the special education class, and that money goes away. So they don't want your kid to ever get out of it. So they do certain things like not allowing the tool of a non-custodial parent to virtually tutor their own child, because that person is not a school tutor. They're just a parent. And the other parent says they don't want that person to be the tutor, and there you go. Kid can't even be tutored by their own parent because of goofy ass shit that we're allowing in our own communities. Now there's some of us to speak out, and special thanks to y'all. If you have a friend or family member that's doing some goofy stuff like that and you speak out, I appreciate you for that. But there's so few of you. There's so few of you. We watch our kids go off the deep end every fucking year. And half the time we can even pinpoint when it started, how it's happening, and where it's going to go. And half of us are so afraid to piss off one party or the other. And I'm being ambiguous here for reasons, because I don't want people to think I'm just bashing women or something. I'm a guy. So my outlook on it is going to come from the male perspective naturally, because I have children and I've got ex-wives, right? So I have this personal experience from the father/non-custodial piece, and I also have a similar experience from being the primary custodial parent of my older children. So I've seen both sides of this. And I can tell you right now, there is a very stark difference between having your children's best interests at heart and basically using the kid as a pawn to piss off another parent. And the schools are helping people do this because there's money in it. And that to me is sad. So at the end of the day, the federal department shutting down, I lament only for those who don't have jobs, but I also wish them the best because they got a great severance package. And if you gave me that severance package, I'd be perfectly fine. Okay? Just being honest. I would be perfectly fine. You give me 3 to 6 months of pay and I don't have to give you my time. I got time to do something else. Oh, come on, man. I'd never have to go back to there again. So, with that being said, I don't believe that the shutdown of a federal Department of Education does anything other than makes the schools maybe not want to put so many kids on freaking special ed, because a lot of them shouldn't even be there. And then once they're there, it's like they do everything they can to keep your kid in special ed, even if they're doing better. Then all of a sudden they get suspended for 3 or 4 days. They don't send them home with work. Like no packet, nothing to study. They're just at home for 3 days. And they're supposed to be special ed kids. How are you expecting the kid to come back to school after they miss 3 days of school and jump back into a math class? It's a setup. And they know what they're doing. And then when a parent comes across and says, hey, let me be specific. When a non-custodial parent in the midst of what would be considered a high conflict custody issue comes in and says, hey, why don't you send that work home for that kid? They won't even respond to that parent. And the other parent never even asks. So who's really at fault when this child's education is not complete? Do we blame the federal Department of Education? I would suffice to say no. I would suffice to say the federal Department of Education was bloated, and that money could be better used to put people into trade schools for plumbing, electricians, HVAC, and things like that. To the kids that were coming out of high school that either didn't have money or whatever, do that. Start some public colleges, give out some real scholarships. But you got to remember, if your kid has never really been a good student, you can send them to college all you want. That doesn't mean they're going to do well. They have to be out here ready to compete. And I'm starting to feel like certain school systems are not doing what they need to do to make sure these kids compete. But then they complain about the kid the whole time. And then when the parents coming in saying, let's do X, Y, and Z, they say, well, mom says she don't want to do that. Well, she don't have to do shit. All she got to do is get out the way. And all y'all got to do is get out the way. But instead, they stand in the way. And then when somebody like me gets upset or frustrated, now I'm threatening and I'm scaring the hell out of people. Well, maybe I'm just passionate about my child's education and y'all are failing him. Maybe. Maybe the fact that he's failing pretty much every class but gym should be a sign that there's a problem. And if I have an idea and I'm his parent, I don't care who his other parent is. Tell me let's try my idea, and when it fails, like this IEP has for the last however many years, then we can have a conversation about it. But if you just literally limit what options are available to the kid, and you can tell where the problem is, but you're too scared to talk to a parent because you don't want to hear nobody's mouth, then you're not being a full educator. You got a job to do. If you see this kid's not getting what he needs from home, say something. You can say it to the other parent, but they don't want to be involved. No, I don't want to end up in somebody's court case. So instead of that, let's sacrifice the kid. I'm sorry, but what happened to the heart of our educators? Y'all see it. Y'all grown. They see it. And then you talk to them as parents, and they literally act like they don't know what you're talking about. Man, if I could show you some of the case history that I've seen, it would blow your mind. Some of the things that parents have done to screw up their kids' education. Because there's some check involved in this shit that some people get and some people don't. And for those people that don't qualify for that, we out here trying to make sure these kids can compete. None of my kids are going to ever think that this world is just going to be handing them anything monthly. That's not how it works. And maybe they're handing their parents something monthly, but that shit ends once you turn a certain age anyway. And then at that point, what do you think that parent's going to do? They're going to kick your old ass out, and you're not going to have no experience. That's the child I'm talking about. So we don't want that to happen. So if you have parents that are trying to be involved, get out of the way. And if the other parent is trying to be in the way, then as an educator, make the decision that this might be better for the kid. The conflict is between the parents, not between the child and this education. And if one parent is saying, I want to help this kid with homework every day, and the mother saying, no, I don't want him to do that, ask the mother why not. And if she says no, or it gives you some bullshit, utilize the education as a reason to call CPS. Because denying a child education is also abuse. You're setting them up for failure. So if you're an educator sitting back watching somebody do some shit, hey, we're all adults. Call the other parent and say, yo, you need to call CPS right now because I'm tired of watching this shit from the side. Not try to hide it for the sake of getting the school money. Sorry, I know I'm going off on it with y'all. I know I'm going off on it. Sorry, I didn't even check the chat. Let me see who's in the chat. I was losing it, man. So pissed off at these people. So pissed off at these people. I'll be honest with you. If they really get that homeschool credit thing going, if I still have time left with my youngest, I would homeschool the shit out of him. And he would be 100% prepared for this world at 18 years old. But if not, based on what I'm seeing, based on the current education system, the current trends, these kids are doomed, and they're not allowing us as the parents to make the adjustments necessary. Like if you think your kid's having issues in school, why can't I tap into a camera system to see where my kid is? You got cameras all over the school, right? You telling me he's absent from class. You telling me he's walking the hallways, right? Why can't I see that shit in real time and deal with it in real time? No, I call the school and you want to tell me I can't speak to him about him not being in class because his mama said I can't talk to him. But you know he's not doing well. And you know a lot of kids like to hear from their father when they have discipline issues. But instead of doing that, now I don't want to hear this other person's mouth. So let's sacrifice the whole kid's education because you don't want to hear this person spout some goofy shit to you that you know ain't even true. The kid needs help, so you get it wherever you can. Those tools that they say that you're supposed to be using is any and all things that will help this child with their education. So if you believe that that parent doing that tutoring would help with the child's education, then you got to push for it. Instead of sitting by saying, yeah, I know he wants that, but I don't want to deal with his mama. What? But yes, unfortunately, yes. That's what we got. Jeff Kendall in the chat, thank you for stopping in the chat, bro. I'm almost out of here. Because I done purged my BS because I'm looking at this. Don't let them get you with the hype, y'all. That's all I'm going to say. Don't let them get you with the hype about this damn federal Department of Education if they're not going to give you true insight into the education of the children that you actually have in your district. Half of the schools, you can't even go up there and see your kid during the school day. And then don't be in some type of a custody situation. You be a biological parent, name on the birth certificate parent, and they won't let you see your own kid on school grounds. You know, I'm not signing them out. I just heard he was in trouble. I'm up here to see what the hell's going on. And because another parent is saying, no, I don't want that person to see that kid, even though there's no legal thing that can happen, they got them thinking that you're going to run off with your own child. And so instead of allowing you to parent the way that you feel necessary to parent this child, they literally stand in the way. And I, for one, am tired of that shit. I'm tired of it. And if I don't do nothing else, I am going to dedicate my next however many couple of years I got on this planet to make sure that non-custodial parents who have a mind for education don't get freaking boxed out of their kids' education because they're not with the first parent. That is bullshit. And I shouldn't have to take them to court for that. I shouldn't have to complain to the Board of Education of the state. I shouldn't have to go through all that. In the parents' rights, it says you have a right to these things. But then the school makes a decision because they have a minimum. So it's like if a kid gets in trouble, they call whoever's the first person on the thing, and that's their minimum. That's what they got to do to be in compliance, right? But even if the other parent comes and says, no, that's not going to work because I don't really talk to that other parent like that, but I do need to know what's going on with my kid. If the other parent causes a back and forth with that, they still won't do it. So why does the school have more of a right to information about my kid than I do? I don't know. Who gave them that? You know who gave them that? The parents, when they got a divorce and made the kid a ward of the damn state. When you get a divorce, I know you think your kid is yours. I know you feel like that, right? But the second you get a divorce, you have to come up with a custody arrangement. Same as baby daddies and baby mamas, right? The kid becomes a ward of the state. That means the state makes all decisions about this child from that point on until they're 18 or whatever. So you do have rights, but technically the state has more right to your child than you do because they can come and take them at any point in time. So when you can't work shit out as parents before you decide to break up, what you're giving up is not just a relationship, you're giving up your kids to the state. And if y'all can't communicate and get the shit together, the state's going to do whatever they can to make as much money off of them and push them right through that school to prison pipeline. Somebody got to be on the lower end. Your kid's a perfect candidate for it because they're coming from this broken home or whatever. Parents not getting along. No, the custodial parents not paying attention to the education. Oh, yeah, let's not do too much work with this one. He's a waste of time. Let's just push him through because somebody needs to work the drive-through at McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? So, guys, I appreciate y'all stopping in and letting me rant and rave because I realized yesterday when everybody was talking about this education thing, I was in the middle of something else, and I realized I can't talk to certain people. A. Thompson, thank you for jumping in the chat as well. I understand what you're saying, but that's, let me read it off because people won't see the chat later. He was saying that what I was saying was not entirely true and to find a school to get involved with custody if the kids missing days, if they're missing a lot of days, right? Which is sort of true, but the truth is that comes down to the school district itself. Like you said, it says get a school. Well, you don't know that school ain't shit until they start not being shit. You see what I'm saying? And at that point, you got to go through a lot, transfer your kid out. You got to go through some things. So it shouldn't have to be that you got to find the right school that will help with your child's education. It should be the point of the education. So I'm not saying that what you're saying is untrue. What I'm saying is a lot of times you won't know that this is a problem until you're in the midst of it. And we shouldn't have to go through that if we had a kind of a baseline of what should really be going on. And I thought that's what the Federal Department of Education was supposed to be doing. But it seems like they weren't. Because just like A. Thompson said, different schools do different things. You see what I'm saying? But if your kid is one of the bad ones, oh my God, they have no love for that. No love for that. All right, I got a couple more minutes with y'all. I see Jay Coleman just jumping in the chat over there. Uncle Wayne jumping in the chat over there. I see y'all, man. And the stories are different. And for those that don't know, like I said, I've been on both sides of the battle. I've won a custody battle and after the fact and ended up with primary custody. And I'm dealing with the other side of it in being a non-custodial. So I've seen both sides of the positioning. And I can attest to what I was able to do on one side versus the other, like what I was able to get done as far as if I had an issue with the school, how easy was it to get information, how easy was it to get a meeting with a teacher, was way different when I was custodial. I mean, way different. We're talking to the point where I could text these motherfuckers. You understand what I'm saying? Being non-custodial, everything, you call the school, they call the other parent. Hey, you know that your non-custodial just called. Then well, don't talk to him. That has nothing to do with helping this kid's education. But they be all in that goofy shit. And then we say, hey, I want to tutor this kid at 4:30 on a Tuesday. Y'all got a laptop that y'all give him, but he's not being able to use it because that's what we're trying to do. And his custodial doesn't want him to deal with the non-custodial, even for the sake of tutoring. Nobody steps in and says, that's bullshit, that's neglect, and you need to either correct that or we're calling CPS. See, if we started treating these parents like that, maybe they wouldn't feel so empowered to do the goofy shit. But instead, we just let them do it because technically that's less work. If you got to help me virtually tutor this kid or help any parent virtually tutor their kid, you got to set certain things up. You're going to have to monitor it. You're going to have to, deal with it. But if you just let them fail, you can just keep sending emails about them failing and you don't have to do shit else. I don't know, guys. And you're right, Mike G's. Both sides of the argument suck because in a perfect society, the two parties would be able to work this thing out together very well. But if you want to be honest, if they communicated that well and they were getting along that well, they probably wouldn't have been divorced in the first place. So it's like it's wishful thinking. You know what I'm saying? It's wishful thinking at best. Because if two people can get along that well when it comes to the child, and I'm not saying I've never seen it before. I have a friend of mine who was really cool with his ex, and they did really well with their kids. But most times, that's not what happens. Most times, it's a bunch of beef, especially if the parent who the child does not live with wants to be involved in the child's education. Forget every day you got to see them, you got to pick them up. No, to the point where the school is calling both parents at the same time and putting everybody on a conference call if they have to. That's all I'm saying. And hey, Tamara in the chat, I see you jumped in real quick. Tamara, just to be honest with you, the laws are not much different here. It's just high school. When you get to the latter portion of high school, every school has these criteria in the U.S., at least all of the states that I've been in. And they'll have these graduation requirements. It's a credit requirement. You got to have a certain amount of credits. You got to pass a couple of these standardized tests. And you have to have a certain amount of credits in certain classes. So let's say you need to have 4 full English credits. That means you got to pass English every year. If you fail English even in the first part of your freshman year, you're going to have to take summer school or something in order to make up that before you get to graduation. That's how they do. High school is like that. The problem is they're doing all of the special ed, pushing them through shit in middle and elementary school. They're getting a lot of these kids on these IEPs in 1st and 2nd grade before they even really are used to social circles, right? So by the time they get out of middle school, they're so far behind that when they start high school, they're already doing remedial classes. You know what I'm saying? Uh-oh, did my thing cut? No, it didn't. But yeah, they're already doing remedial classes as soon as they get to high school. They're doing old math and shit that they should have done in elementary school or middle school. So it's a setup, and then they get to their senior year after the school done drained 4 years of special ed money out of them, right? And then tell them, oh, you can't graduate. Or you got to just do this GED class real quick for 6 weeks, and then you can get out of here. You won't walk with your classmates that you grew up with, that you came through with. Nope, you won't walk with them, but you'll get this little piece of paper. That's how they do these kids in the U.S. And so I'm just letting y'all know I have to get this out because I know there's a way out of this. I know there is a parental right to education. There's FERPA and the IDEA Act and all this kind of stuff. There is a way. And if there isn't, I'm not going to rest until there is. Where a parent, custodial or non-custodial, if they want to be involved in their child's education, directly involved, to the point where I'm looking at cameras in the school if you're telling me he's cutting class, right? Where the second he moves the wrong way, I'm coming through the phone. not y'all. You see what I'm saying, right? But that won't happen. But they'll keep fucking complaining about the kid. But I'm giving you a solution you don't want. So what that says to me is you don't want this problem solved. You just want to run on a problem and just keep the problem going so you can always say, oh, he's always been a problem. I'm not with the shit. I'm not with the shit. Federalized education, the GED, all that kind of stuff is about to be out the window. You will need to qualify and compete. I'm going to say it to you. Non-discriminatory merit-based hiring. What the f do y'all think that means? That means forget the handouts. If your kid can't compete, they will lose. They will lose. And the world is waiting for them. They're waiting for the failures. They're waiting for the goof-offs. They're waiting for the sped kids. They're waiting for y'all to make these poor decisions about your children's education and be spiteful with other parents just because. Setting these kids up for failure, man, and we're sitting right by worrying about the federal Department of Education. Meanwhile, right now, only 30% of these kids are passing with grade level reading. So is that the educators not educating? Is that the school curriculum is not good enough? What is that? I don't know. But we're not going to really figure it out if we don't dig into it. And we're not going to dig into it from the federal building. You're going to dig into it from the freaking school board down the street. And the PTA. And the CSAC. And the Parental Advisory Committee. And you see what I'm saying? That's where you dig into the shit. So stop worrying about Linda McMahon. And let's figure out how we can get them to pay real parents to do exactly what Keith is talking about in the chat, which is homeschool their children. I ain't no teacher. I'll tell you that right now. But I guarantee that I can get my son an education if he was in my care for the time that he is in school. If I had the time that school had, he would be years ahead of these kids and probably have a business by now. But because they decided to put him in this slow-ass trek, and then every little thing he does, he got to be in trouble for the shit because he's behaviorally, socially, or whatever the hell, right, inept. So what do? They remove him from the education process. When you suspend a child and don't send them home with work, you have removed them from the point of them being in school in the first place, which is the education. So they're showing me what they really want. They don't want these kids to succeed. They want these kids to be what they are, the kids in special ed, because somebody got to fill that space because they need that Title I and Title IX money to come in. And I, for one, am tired of them convincing parents who don't have the kids' education in the front part of their head, allowing those parents to be the ones to dictate the education when there's obviously somebody else trying to do something different. And it's all because we don't have laws in place to say you can't do that. So I'm going to make sure that before this is all said and done, whatever my life turns out to be, whatever happens, I am going to make sure that you can never tell a parent who wants to be involved in educating their child, not picking them up, not even physically being there, logging into a Zoom to help the kid. And you won't allow that, you are neglecting that child. I don't care if you don't want to hear his mother's mouth about letting the kid talk to you. That's not your beef, educators. That's not your beef. Your beef is with the kid being educated. And if you see that there's a parent trying to do something and another parent standing in the way, then you need to stand in the gap for the kid, man. Stop being so worried about who got mouth on the phone. There is a job to do. And Trump put some shit out there and he said merit-based non-discriminatory hiring. So even if that is to be true, you have to be able to compete. If it doesn't come down to black and white, okay, let's just say all of a sudden racism is gone. All of a sudden there's no racist people, there's no prejudice, none of that, right? You still got to be able to compete. So we can't keep blaming the shit on blackness if we're failing in school. They didn't not let me into college because I was black. They didn't let me into college because I was failing in high school. And they don't need that. And this is what I told all of my kids. Some have gone to college, some have not. I put them in a position to have college as an option, because if you have college as an option, you have options. If you meet the requirements to go to college out of high school, like you can get accepted to a college, then you have options. College ain't the only option if you can get into college. You see my point, right? If you can't get into college, your options are so limited, I don't know what else you're going to do. So a lot of people years ago used to tell me, oh, you're so about education, you're all about college and all that. All the kids don't want to go to college. I said, it ain't about going to college. It's about being at the level to be able to make the choice to go to college. Because at that level, you got options. You could go to a trade school. You can go to the military and get a higher grade pay. You can go to a college if you want to. You go 2-year college, 4-year college. You can go to a local college. You can go out of state college. You can go over fucking seas. But you got options. But if you're failing out, none of those options exist. So stop trying to tell these kids that D work is getting by. It's not. You're killing yourself. You're killing our future with this bullshit. You're killing our kids with this miseducation that they don't have a future. You tell a first grader he's got a mental disability, and you tell him that all the way through high school. You think he thinks he has a mental disability? Absolutely yes. And it becomes a cop-out. Every time somebody asks about their behavior, oh, it's because I got a mental disability. If you can tell me about it, then you probably don't have that disability. When it comes to that mental kind of stuff. If you could discuss it with me, nah, that's not ADHD. You're bored. I was bored. We need to fix the whole shit. And if Linda McMahon shuts down the federal thing so we can start focusing on the local, I'm all for that. I'm not for people losing their jobs. Don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is the education system is screwed up from the top down. A bunch of money's going somewhere. We don't know where it's going. And I can't even so much as tutor a kid with a system that the school pays for. They could easily set up a Zoom call to do that. And what is that going to cost? Probably nothing. Zoom calls are free if you got the basic plan. And you can't even get them to do that when they're getting money to help this kid. So I'm going to tell you right now, I personally am done being nice with the shit. I've been very patient about it. I've gone through a number of years of saying, hey, I don't like this idea. I don't think this is working. And because this whole thing started in a period of time where parents weren't together, it's been the same beef the whole time. And now we're looking at a very serious situation, and there's children, mine included, who are at danger of not being able to compete in this world that is being set up for them. And I am not for that, guys. I'm not. So I got to get out of here because I do have some shit to do on today's wonderful day. But I want y'all to take it all in. Don't believe the hype on this Department of Education thing if you're not going to be putting your foot in the educators in your own community. If you don't care about the school and when PTA night is, if you ain't never been to a fucking PTA meeting a day in your life, I don't even want to hear your mouth. If you've never had to sit down with a principal to express your suggestions about how the school might be able to run better, I don't want to hear about it. If you don't even know where your Board of Education is, like where the building is, you don't really have much to talk to me about when it comes to education. Because I've been there. I done sat in all of them meetings. All of them. And I've seen how shit gets out of hand and people got money going the wrong place and folks who are parents are trying to get things done for their kid and there's a lot of red tape around how that can be done. Talking about liability and shit. Like if you want to get something for your kid, they're like, well, because we have the kid in a regular class, we can't give them that tool because the other kids will want it and we can't do that. So your kid has to suffer because they don't want to get the other kids some shit. That kind of stuff. See what I'm saying? So I got to get out of here, guys. Mike G's, thanks for stopping in the chat. A. Thompson, thank you for stopping in the chat. Al Bond, thank you for stopping in the chat. Tamara, thanks for stopping through. Zeus, thanks for stopping through. Amy, thanks for stopping through. Keith, thanks for stopping through. Everybody, thank you for stopping through to another Purge of the BS. It has been real, but I got to get up out of here, all right? Peace out of here, y'all.